Again, if you donate directly to AO Yoga today, we'll add up the amount and just announce how much we raised. But please feel free to go ahead and donate on your own as well. So Devin, I'm going to go ahead and announce you, and then if you want to take more time before you start, just in silence, I think that's fine, to let other people join. So I'm super excited to announce Devin Emery. Devin is a very dear friend of mine who I've known for many years, who I really deeply respect, and I'm so honored that they could join us today. Devin is also a COVID nurse, and I feel deeply honored for you being on the front lines of, I feel like, our social justice movement, as well as this pandemic, and being just willing to take your time today. So thank you so much. So those of you who don't know Devin, Devin is a mixed race Lenape, Blackfoot transgender choreographer, dance artist, body worker, ceremonial guide, acute care and hospice nurse, currently working as a COVID-19 nurse in New York City. So I am going to go ahead and turn that over, and thank you, Devin, for joining us.
Thank you, Ayo. Aho, Wanishi, Nutella. Hello, gratitude. I am Devin. I am a mixed Lenape and Blackfoot person who's also part settler. I am humbled to join you for an opening prayer and invitation for repair on the land which I am from, Lenape Hoking. I'm currently on Muncie Canarsie territory, otherwise known as Brooklyn. Gratitude for you, Ao, my comrade, for inviting me to join you today. And I typically spend today in prayer and also practicing yoga and often with Ao. So I'm super humbled to offer you today something that I wrote especially for you. The origin of Indigenous Day of Mourning, truth-giving, thanks-taking, or no thanksgiving, holds the genocide of Mashpe, Wampanoag, and Pequot relatives. Lincoln then declared this massacre a holiday in an attempt to unite families who were divided in the Civil War, whether or not to own Black people. Today is a painful day for my people, and it is a reminder we can't afford to look away. I encourage you to be with me in the truth and let it direct you toward how you wish to be with others. Today, I ask you to join me in supporting Indigenous tribes whose land you live on, and offering funds to Indigenous-led organizations and people. I choose today my kin Feeding Sovereignty and their Indigenous Impact Community Care initiative in response to the 68 tribal nations who were forced to return to school in person in the midst of this global pandemic. The funds we are raising together will go directly toward sending these children masks so that they may be able to live to carry our traditions into the future. Let us together invest in an Indigenous future. It is an honor to be with you this afternoon, as you are all drawn to the calling of a morning prayer on this day and to anti-oppression. I'd like to extend an invitation to hold the truth about today with me, and to invite you to join me in repairing the harm done to the land, its original people, and those enslaved, so that together we may create today's society. How can we weave an honest legacy, knowing we are all active creators in the reality of our patterns? We must do this in ways that reconnect us to the earth in right relation. As a COVID nurse and spirit medium, I'm witnessing hands-on that we are gaining many more ancestors. How can we act now in weaving a legacy? How can we act now to be in good relation? And what does this language mean? Being in good relations is a central ethical concept for Indigenous nations. It means to recognize the mutual interdependence of human and all non-human beings. It means all life is sacred, and to hold all beings of life reverently, knowing we can't stand for the protection of life while we are destroying life. I invite you to join me in creating new ways of being with all beings. And being in this together does not mean sameness. It does not mean think more like me, which is a common anti-oppression trap. We know that the natural world contains a field of grass, each blade quite different. How can we make this movement as desirable as laying with and in that field? Being in good relation is to recognize our reciprocal obligation toward each other as individuals and as a community. Daily acts of reciprocity. Only then are we able to be in right relation with each other and build a sustainable life that we want to live in together. Dear Spirit, may our hearts be open for healing between all people. Protect us while we are honest in repairing our relation with the earth and with each other. As we understand, being in right relation with ourselves first starts with sustainable acts of gratitude and offerings back to the land. May we recognize, like Penobscot teacher Sherry Mitchell says, all the energy we put out has vibrational implications and affects all of creation. It is time for us to spiritually grow, to cultivate a life that changes the value system. We understand that not everything is for sale, that highest profit does not fill our spirits with joy. We gather our energy today as an act of harmony, to rebalance our sacred vessels with the land as we remember the sacred instructions on how to live as people. We thank the gifts of the natural world and what you provide, Spirit. And we offer our gratitude back to you by starting our day with centering our nervous system and breathing out the muddiness so that way we may be clear on our next best actions forward. I recognize my cousins, Haudenosaunee peoples in my prayer to you. We thank each other for showing up today. Mama Earth for sustaining our lives, the water for keeping us fluid, the plants for nourishing us, the herbs and their medicine, the winds for keeping the air moving, the sun bringing the light of each new day, the moon who measures time, the stars that keep us dreaming, all of our teachers who guide us forward, and especially Spirit for reminding us of the love that is always present. On Kuntewa Kom. Blessings.
Thank you, Devin. So thank you everyone for joining us. I'm going to invite you to go ahead and come to lie down on your back. Can everyone hear me okay? No, I'm getting head nods no. Let's see. Try taking my beanie off to see if it's in the way of the microphone. Is this okay? Some are okay, some are not. So maybe sort of folks that can't hear me, if you want to try turning up a little bit, and if it gets really bad and you continue to not be able to hear me, if you want to go ahead and say a little something. All right. So go ahead and start laying down on your back. And I just invite you to go ahead and bend your knees, bringing the bottoms of your feet to touch onto the earth. Okay. And then I just invite you to bring your hands to touch onto your own belly. And hopefully you can still hear me and this is working. And if it's not, you can let me know. And then I just invite you to bring your awareness to the back of your body. The parts of you that touch onto the earth. And you can draw your awareness also to the bottoms of the feet as they touch onto the earth. And I'm going to invite you just to imagine that the back of your body and the parts of you that touch onto the floor could just widen outwards with your breath. So as if you're floating on top of a river, and the entire river is the surface of your back. So that you can feel this sense of expansion and openness. And then we're just going to take a couple deep breaths here so you can inhale through your nose and feel that width on the back of your body, your connection to the earth. And an exhale, and just soften the breath out of you. And then again, deep full breath in, widen the back of the body. And exhale when you're ready to soften. And we'll take one more like that. Just starting to feel that back open spaciousness. And then I'm going to go ahead and unfold my hands off of my belly and draw my arms up into a T shape. And we'll move towards a twist here. So I'm going to move my hips over towards the left side of my mat. And I'm going to let my knees and my feet come over towards the right. Now, if this pops your shoulder up off the ground, or if this is a lot of pressure on your back, you could try padding between your knees if you want to put a blanket or a cushion between your knees. So my feet are towards the right, my left arm is out, and then I'm going to let my chin go over towards the left, so away from my knees. And just start to allow a gentle opening, a gentle softening of that left shoulder towards the floor. And just a couple breaths to settle. As you stay here, you might notice places that are tense that can let go. It happens in layers, like the peeling of an onion. Maybe you notice that your jaw or your tongue is tight. And then we're going to take a couple more breaths with a sense of enlivening, a sense of waking up the body. So you might even reach your left arm a little farther, just reach your left fingertips out, maybe feel a little more stretch through that shoulder. And a couple deep breaths, like you're just awakening yourself. Like the breath could lift you up. And then one more. All right, I'm going to draw myself back to center. I'm going to come right over to the other side. So I'm going to move my hips up and over towards the right. I'm going to let my knees and my feet come over towards the left, opening my right arm. Again, if your shoulder comes up off the floor, or if this feels like a lot on your back, you can go ahead and pad between your knees or pad underneath your arm. Whatever helps you feel that you can release into it so that we're not holding here. Finding this gentle supine twist. And then again, just using your breath to just arrive in your body in this position. What does it mean to just feel your own flesh and bone? To feel your body resting on the earth? To feel the earth holding you? And then you can spend a couple breaths with a little more active breath. So maybe even reaching the right fingertips out a little bit more, or thinking of the breath as really coming up into the top of the chest, so that instead of making us heavy, the breath makes us lighter. And inviting this idea that the earth comes up to meet you, the earth is supporting you. And what does that mean for the buoyancy of your body? How can it have a sense of lightness and openness? And we'll take just one more breath there. All right, I'm going to draw myself back to center, and I'm going to start to draw my knees in towards my chest. If that's not comfortable for you, you could also use a strap behind your thighs to grab hold of the knees. And you can have the knees together or apart, whatever feels right to you. And I just invite you to add some movement in your hip sockets here. So I'm moving my knees open and close. I'm just starting to warm the synovial fluids of my hips. And then I might also just draw the knees in circles of one another. And just notice if your legs are wanting to take over. So are your legs trying to do the work? And can you actually invite your arms to do most of the work so that your hip sockets can stay a little bit soft? Real simple. If it feels good to rock from side to side here, you could rock from side to side. Just getting a little movement through the lower body. And then we're going to take the next 3 or so breaths to come towards a child's pose. So if you know how to get there, you can work yourself there. If you know that you need padding or any cushioning, you can adjust yourself now. I'm going to roll myself over to the side and use my hands to support me, and then I'm going to go ahead and bring myself into a child's pose. I like to have a little padding underneath me. You might find that you want it under your heels. You might find that you want it under your chest. So just figuring out what works for you here. And then now we're just in this completely different orientation of the body. So the back of the body is up towards the sky, and you can feel the openness of your breath. And you might feel the pressure, deep pressure of your belly against your thighs, just giving you some grounding. And then I just invite you here to think about who came before you, both on this land, on this earth, on the place where you are today. And also, who were your ancestors? Who came before you in your lineage, in your bloodline? And that can bring up a lot of feelings around who those people were or what those people did that we do or do not like. And if those feelings become overwhelming to you at any point during this time together, I just invite you to come back to the spaciousness of your breath on your back. So we're inviting this idea of bringing in both the knowledge and the mistakes of our ancestors as a way to learn. Inhaling, feeling the back of the body expand. And exhaling to soften. If you're familiar with making the sound of the ocean on the back of the throat, so drawing the breath across the vocal cords gently, you can start to use that now to even out your inhalation and your exhalation. And then I'm going to start to add a little bit of movement into my body. And I'm just going to be really straightforward here. We're going to come up to stand in the next 10 or so breaths, and I'm not going to direct it. So you might be able to weight bear in your hands and take cat-cow. and that might not be an option for you. So I'm just going to invite you over the next 10 or so breaths to start to add a little movement into your body and to work your way towards standing. And just letting yourself be exploratory about your body as you go. Noticing what feels tight or tense or held. If you have no idea what to do, you might come towards your hands and knees. Just swing your hips from side to side. Or you could just come right up to stand and just begin standing. If you're familiar with downward facing dog and that's already a practice, part of your yoga practice, you could also move through a downward facing dog to come to stand. Taking about 3 or so more breaths. And if you're taking more time, that's fine. If you're ready to join in standing, I'm going to bring my feet just underneath my hip sockets. So not the outside length of my hips, but really thinking of my feet right beneath my pelvis as a just nice support there. And then I'm going to flex my toes up off the floor. And when I flex my toes up off the floor, I feel a line of energy lift through the middle of the leg. And I'm going to try to keep a little line of energy through my legs as I allow my toes to release down towards the floor. And again, you can just do that. Just check out your toes, lift them up off the floor, maybe even try dropping one toe at a time down towards the floor. And then as you do that, notice if your hands start to do something, right? Are your hands trying to operate your toes? So we're flexing the toes up and then finding their relationship to the earth, but still with this energy going upwards. So I'm not letting my weight sag down, but I feel like the earth comes up to meet my feet come up to meet my legs come up to meet the rest of my body. And then from here, I'm going to open my arms out into just like a T shape. And you can just notice here, do your shoulders go with you? Can you keep your shoulders softly down? And I'm really feeling a sense of expansion from my fingertip to my fingertip, so all the way across. And then I'm going to bring my awareness to the back of my body again. And for me, I find it helpful to imagine that I have eyes in the back of my head. So what would it be like if I was looking behind me? And when I do that, I get a more expansive feeling on the back of my body. And just inviting this idea, right, that when we look behind us, when we see the mistakes both that we've made and that our ancestors made, that we can learn with them if we keep a sense of expansion around them, a sense of openness. So I'm going to try to keep that expansive sense on the back of my body as I reach my arms up towards the sky. Again, noticing if my shoulders go with me and not overcorrecting and pushing them down, but just allowing and inviting them to soften down the back. So we're just in this open shape. Some call this like a Tadasana or whatever works for you is fine. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to lift one foot up off the floor. I'm just going to find a moment of balance here. And I invite you as you balance here to just notice what happens in your bottom ankle. So for most of us, we get like a little quiver, right? A little quiver in the ankle. And that's actually a sign that the balance is working. We're going to come into a tree pose. I'm going to attach that foot onto the side of my ankle, the side of my shin, or you can draw it up onto the inside of your thigh. And then I'm going to push that foot towards the leg and my leg back and towards the foot. So really get a nice strength from my legs. Again, you might float your arms upwards here. And then again, notice that ankle. Where is that imbalance? And that imbalance is actually your balance, right? Balance is never static. This is a great sign that your body, your proprioceptors are working. Balance should always have a little movement in it. We don't want to shut the joints down. And then we're going to take that foot and we're going to step it back behind us. So I'm faced towards the camera, but I'm going to turn on my mat here. And I'm just going to come into just a gentle calf stretch. Now, if you're not using a chair, you could just have your hands on your hips. My toes and my heel are in line with one another. So I'll show that in the camera. They're this way. So it's not a warrior one with the back toes out, but the toes and the heel are in line. So I'm stretching the back of the calf there. And then if you don't feel this so much, you could try keeping your back heel down on the floor, but bending your knee at the same time. And you might feel it a little differently. And if you don't feel that, that's fine. It just means you're not tight in that part of your calf. So you might straighten that leg again. And we'll just take a couple breaths here. Just letting the back of the leg open. All right, from here, I'm going to rotate my weight forward onto that front foot, and I'm just going to extend that back leg behind me a little bit. My toes are touching gently onto the floor, and I'm standing up on my right leg right now. You might be using a chair, or you might have your hands on your hips. Notice if you fall into your lower back. See if you can draw your front body towards your back body, so you're still lifting up. So this is the, when you hear the word down dog split today, and you're taking downward facing dog at the chair, this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be just gently just having those toes, maybe even I lift them up off the floor just a tiny bit, like a centimeter. And then we're going to go ahead and step that foot forward. So that was my left foot. I'm going to take my right foot. I'm going to bring my right foot up onto my chair. Now, if you're not using a chair, you can come to a hamstring stretch of your choice. So I'm using a chair. I've got my right foot up. For those of you who are not on a chair, you can bring your hands down towards the floor, either framing your foot with your back knee up, or you could find some padding and straighten through that front leg with the back knee down, right? They're all the same stretch. They're just finding some openness in the back of the hamstring. And then we're going to take some breaths here. Okay, wherever you're at, we're going to come towards a downward facing dog shape. So if you're familiar with downward facing dog, you can step yourself there. If you're not quite sure what I'm talking about, then you can use the chair and step your feet back, let your shoulders come downwards towards the earth, and pull your hips towards the wall behind you. I like to keep my knees bent here so that I just let myself really open on the back. If you're working in downward facing dog, if you're treading your feet out, or doing whatever you need for that first downward facing dog at your practice, please do. I invite you to stay with this idea of the width of the back of your body. We're going to meet by stepping the feet forward towards the hands. So however you get there, if you're in downward facing dog, on the floor or on the chair. I'm going to reach my arms out to the side again and just find that expansion on the back of the body. I'll turn just to face the camera, but you can face the front of your mat if you like. I'm going to take my opposite leg up. So I'm going to take my right knee up off the floor here and try to keep that expansion on the back of my body, and then maybe coming into tree pose, drawing the foot towards the ankle, towards the shin, or towards the inner thigh. Again, just noticing that dance that your ankle does, and let that be a part of your practice. So that quivering, that sort of sense of unbalance is actually how we find balance. And I think of this also in relationship to our ancestors, right? The things that maybe we don't like that our ancestors did, the people that we may have known that hurt us, and how are they, right? That unsteadiness is still a part of our practice, a way that we move our practices forward. All right, when we're ready, we're going to step back into a calf stretch on the opposite side. So I'm going to take that right foot back behind me, just dropping the heel down towards the floor, nice and easy. Again, if you don't feel it there, you might just be tight in a different spot in your calf, so you could keep your heel down towards the floor and try to bend your back knee as you do that. If you don't feel it that much, then go ahead and straighten that back leg again. Your hands could be on your hips or your arms could be on your chair. And just a couple breaths there. All right, I'm going to step forward onto my left leg. I'm going to have my right leg extended back behind me, and I'm not going to fall into my lower back, so I'm going to let my front body move towards my back body so I feel a sense of lift, and I'm just almost just gently grazing my right toes on the floor. So I'm finding that sense of a the strength of the back of my legs that I would find in a down dog split pose here. I can feel my bottom leg really supporting me and working. And then we're going to give that leg a little bit of relief by coming into a hamstring stretch. Again, you can bring your hands down towards the earth if that's a part of your practice, or if you're working with a chair today, go ahead and lift your foot up on the chair, and then taking a little bit of a forward movement with the chest until you find a little opening on the back of the leg. We'll breathe here together. And then stepping back again towards a downward facing dog shape. So whether that's with your hands on the floor or with your hands on the chair, we're going to walk the feet back, let the arms extend, shoulders open. And then letting the energy of this downward facing dog be about stretching the spine, right? Stretching the tailbone away from the top of the head and keeping the back of the body wide. If you're working at the chair, I encourage you to keep a bend in your knees so that you don't lock out into your lower back, unless you feel very, very confident about your relationship to your hamstrings and your low back, and it's possible for you to straighten your legs without falling into the back. A couple more breaths there. We're going to meet by coming towards a child's pose for a few breaths. So if you're on the chair, you can gently lower yourself down towards the floor. Letting your forehead come to rest on the floor. And then we're going to turn our palms to face upwards in this child's pose. You might even extend your arms forward a little bit. And then I just invite you to take a couple breaths there. Feeling the width of the back of your body. Allowing yourself to surrender for a moment. And then what is it about the past, about what's behind you, that you would surrender? And maybe even inviting that as an offering in your hands, a sense of letting go. Whether that's an action of your own or an action of your ancestors, or something that prompts you. What is it that you look to let go of? We're going to work ourselves back towards a downward facing dog shape. So if you're in your child's pose, you can come forward to your hands and knees, and either taking your chair shape or downward facing dog on the mat, feeling your sits bones reach out. Feeling the top of your head, nice and easy, reach away. Notice if you have tension on the sides of your neck. And then we're gonna meet in standing in the next 3 or so breaths. So you can start to step your feet forward in a way that feels good to you. If you're hanging over the legs because you're coming from downward facing dog, you could spend a moment there. You might spend a moment to roll up your spine. And then when you come to standing, I just invite you to inhale and reach your arms out and up and feel that expansion on the back of your body. And then an exhale to press the palms together in front of the heart. You can allow your eyes to close here for a moment. So those same palms that were just turned up towards the sky, bringing a sense of offering. I now just invite you to think about what is it that you're going to bring to the world, either today or in the future. What is it that you're bringing in order to let go of this thing that you're holding or that your lineage is holding? What do you commit to? What is the intention, either for your practice today or your intention in your life as an activist or human? I'm just holding that in your heart with a sense of openness. We're gonna come back to balance on one foot. This time I'm gonna cross my ankle over, so I'll show it towards the camera. I'm gonna lift actually let's start with the right foot. I'm gonna lift my right foot up off the floor. I'm gonna cross my right ankle over and let my knee open, coming into a number 4 shape. And from here, I'm gonna bend my supporting leg. So you might find that you're facing your chair or using your chair for support, and that's great. You might find that you can bend really deeply and you find a little balance. And then you might find that you bring your hands to touch down onto the floor to get an opening there on the side of the hip. So pick the level that works for you and then use your breath to see if you can open the space of that hip. And breathing here. And when you're ready, you can bring yourself back up to stand. We'll switch right over to the other side. If you want to inhale and reach your arms out and up on the in-between and exhale, press the palms, you can. I'm going to lift my left leg up towards the sky and cross the ankle over, finding that number 4 shape, bending my supporting leg. You might find balance, you might find the chair, you might find the floor. Whatever works for your practice and for your hip opening today. And then we'll come back up to stand. I'm going to inhale and reach the arms out and up. And I'm going to exhale and press the palms together in front of my heart. I'm going to invite you to come towards downward facing dog. So if it's already part of your practice, you can lower your hands to the floor and step yourself back. If you're using a chair today or you haven't done downward facing dog before, again, just using that chair, drawing the hips back, knees bent, and we'll spend some breaths here. Feeling your sits bones reach away from your head. Notice if you're pushing your shoulders towards the floor, or instead if you can find a little buoyancy under your armpits. Okay, my chair folks, you can come back up to stand. My downward facing doggers, you can lift your right leg back behind you, finding a down dog split. A chair people, if you want to find just that standing position, reaching the right leg back. And then we're going to lower that down and then take the other side. Reaching the left leg back, either in a down dog split or in standing, just activating the back of the leg. One more breath with this left leg up, and then we're going to step the left foot forward, and you can step it forward between your hands if that works for you. We're coming towards a lunge pose. So I'm at standing, I'm going to step the left foot forward and the right foot back. We're going to keep the back heel lifted up off the floor and then float the arms up towards the sky. Now I'm going to think about here from my waist below, like I'm the roots of a tree buried down, and then upwards, I'm lifting my upper body up towards the sky. So I really get a sense that I'm connecting towards what's above me. With this idea, what are we aspiring towards? What are we creating in our lives? Where can we find openness? A couple more breaths here. If you feel like you need a little oomph in your legs or a little work, you could inhale and move the front leg towards straight, and then exhale, bend it, and move around a little bit on your breath. I'm gonna stay here just in this lunge. All right, we're going to inhale and meet by straightening the front leg, and then just open yourself out so that your back toes turn out towards the side and your arms come into that wide T shape. So we're going to work our way towards warrior 2. I said this in class on Tuesday. I'm just going to mention it again. The most common thing I see in warrior 2 is for the hip to just drop down. And so I invite you to just think of your waistline like you have a bar across the waistline, and just getting your hips even before you bend. So I'm going to lift my front hip, which for me right now is my left hip, up a little bit, keep that evenness in my waist, and then bend my knee forward in line with my first and my second toe. So I'm not letting the knee collapse in. And then you can open your arms back just in that expansion if that feels okay for your shoulders. And then breathing here. What kind of openness, what kind of ease can you find? All right, I'm gonna rotate my back arm down towards the floor. It's gonna flip my back heel up off the floor and bring me back into high lunge pose just for a breath. We're gonna move towards a hamstring stretch. So your choice, your hands come down to the floor or blocks as you straighten your front leg, or if you're working with a chair today, coming back into the chair stretch with your foot up on the chair. If you're working with the hands supporting underneath you, maybe noticing if your shoulders tense or tighten. Drawing your hips to square. We're gonna bend the front knee. You can either find yourself in a low lunge pose with your back heel down, or you could find yourself up on your chair. If you're using a chair, we're gonna support with the right arm and lift the left arm out. So coming in towards a twist. And then I just invite you in your twist to just find the spaciousness of your back body here again. Where do you feel like you might be clamping or shutting down? You can find that spaciousness. If you're working on a chair, same thing, arm reaches out. Where's the space of your back? We're gonna take one more inhale here. As you exhale, you can soften your hands down. We're gonna step back towards downward facing dog. Take the variation that works for you. If you are well seasoned in yoga, right, if you've been marinating it for a while and you're familiar with taking a vinyasa, so moving forward to a plank pose and down to the floor or to chaturanga, baby cobra or upward facing dog, you can take that now. My chair folks, we're gonna step the feet forward. And then we're all gonna meet in by lifting the left leg back behind. So down dog split with the left leg up, or at standing, just finding the strength of the back of the legs. And then stepping that left foot down and reaching the right leg back behind. Finding down dog split on the right, or standing with the right foot behind. Still finding that width on the back of the body wherever you're at. One more inhale. When you're ready, you can step that right foot forward and we'll step the left foot back, coming into a lunge pose. Working yourself up so that the arms come up towards the sky. Again, imagining that from the waist below, you're like the roots of a tree, ground down into the earth, and then you invite yourself to find some space above. A sense of openness. What are we creating? What are we inviting in with our upper body? If you took it on the other side, you could continue to work with that feeling of inhaling and straightening the front leg, and then exhaling and bending. We'll spend just a couple more breaths here. And then when you're ready, inhaling, straightening the front leg, we're gonna exhale and open out, preparing for warrior two. My back heel is on the floor, my toes are out to the side. Again, just checking out what's happening with my hips, not letting the front hip drop down, but I'm gonna take my right hip, I'm gonna let it drop up a little bit, and then bend my front knee and reach my arms out. And finding that expansion on the back of the body. Notice what feels tight or held, and can you let go of it? I'm gonna drop my back hand down towards the floor. I'm gonna let that just rotate my hip forward again, lift my back heel up, come back into my hind lunge pose, and then come towards a hamstring stretch. So that could be hands down and moving your front leg towards straight. If you need to have your back knee down on the floor, you could have that. And then again, if you're using your chair, just stepping your foot up onto your chair. And we'll breathe there. All right, we're gonna meet by taking a lunge on that side, preparing for a twist. So left arm supports, right arm reaches out to find openness on the back of the body. You could have your hand down on the floor or on the block. And using your breath to sustain you. Notice what feels overly tight. Okay, we're gonna bring the hands down to frame the front foot and stepping back, downward facing dog or child's pose. So if you wanna take downward facing dog once more at the chair, you can, or you could just come right to rest in child's pose. Again, if you're well marinated in yoga and you wanna inhale forward to a long plank pose here and exhale lower through chaturanga or all the way to the floor. And then take an inhale and lift your chest. I'm not doing those options today because I'm not teaching them as part of this class, but if you're familiar with it, you can take it on your own. And then the next couple breaths, we're gonna come to lay down on the stomach. So you can get there however feels that right to you. I'm gonna go ahead and move my chair out of the way. And then coming down onto the belly, just touching the head to the earth. Touching the forehead down. Let's reach the arms nice and long. I'm going to turn my palms to face upwards here again. Just surrendering. All right, I'm going to bring my right arm into a 90-degree angle shape. So I'll just show it. It's going to be like this on the floor, right? Like a scarecrow or a half cactus. So I'm going to bring my right arm into that shape, and then I'm going to roll onto my right side so I face towards the left. And I'm bending my knees and letting my feet come back behind me. And I'm going to use something to support my head. So I like to just use my left fist to support. Now, if you're not feeling this so much, just move around with your fingers and your elbow until you find where the stretch is for you. Just finding a chest opener. You might also find that it's too deep, and so if you need to instead keep your arm nice and long here, you could do that as well. And then we're going to roll back onto the belly and take the other side. Again, my arm is going to come towards a 90-degree like angle shape, like I got it around the corner. And then I'm going to roll onto my side. And letting my chest open there. Maybe using my right fist to support the side of the head. And when you're ready, you can roll back onto the belly once more. One more time, just reaching those arms nice and long. I'm going to let my forehead come down to the earth and make contact. And I'll let my palms face upward as my arms extend. Just allowing myself to surrender to the things that I don't know about, the things I have yet to learn. We're going to take the next 3 to 5 breaths to meet on the back. So whenever you're ready, you can roll yourself over and come to lie down on the back again. And when you arrive on your back, I invite you to just bend your knees, bring the bottoms of your feet to the floor. I'm not a huge back bender, and I don't teach a lot of back bends because for me, I dealt with a lot of back injuries, and I find that they don't actually do anything that supports my daily life. But if you are a seasoned backbender and you want to take a backbend of your choice, you can. For today, I'm just going to offer bringing the arms down by the sides and lifting the hips up off the floor. And then maybe tucking the shoulders underneath you a little bit. If it feels good to grab the side of your mat, you can. If it feels good to interlace your hands underneath you, you can. So it's said in yoga classes a lot, and I usually mention this when I teach this pose, to relax your butt. And I actually find that that's not helpful for my back issues. So for me, I actually let myself have a little bit of lift in my tush, a little hardness in my gluteus maximus, just to give myself that support, because that's what my back will need through the rest of my day. So figure out what works for you for your book or your block, and place your book or your block underneath your pelvis and just let yourself rest in a back bend that way. If you're holding the back bend, go ahead and come out of it, lower your hips down towards the floor. We're going to float the arms then to a T shape and just take a moment to let the spine neutralize. I'm going to let my knees come over towards the right, and then I'm going to inhale my knees back through center, and exhale, let my knees come over towards the left. Inhale back to center. Exhale, knees towards the right. So I'm just sort of windshield wipering the knees from side to side. All right, I'm going to draw myself back to center, and then we're going to take one more back bend. So again, taking that half wheel pose, finding what works for you. If you have a different back bend practice, you can take it. If you want to grab your block or your book and put it underneath your pelvis, you can do that as well. Taking about 5 or so more breaths there. And when you're ready, you can lower yourself down. Again, if you took a more active back bend, draw your arms to your T shape. And this time I'm just going to let my knees come over towards the left. And I might move on the rhythm of my breath as I just windshield wiper the knees from side to side. Okay, we are going to end today by coming to a hip stretch. So if you're familiar with pigeon pose, you can take pigeon. I'm not going to teach it today. I'm just going to cross my right ankle over my left knee and draw my left thigh in towards the body. So a little bit lighter than the pigeon pose, not quite as weighted a stretch on the hips. But if you're really a pigeon lover, I know how it can be. So you can set yourself up for that. And then I'm thinking here just about drawing my breath down my spine and into the place that I feel the tension. And then when you're ready, you can move yourself through something neutral, whether that's downward facing dog for you if you took pigeon pose, or if you're on the back, you might just draw your knees into your chest and swing the knees from side to side a little. And then we'll come to the other side, crossing the left ankle or drawing the left knee forward. If you're crossing the ankle, then drawing the right thigh in towards the body. And just spending some breaths in this pose, imagining that you could open the bottom of the hip or whatever feeling tense or tight with your breath. And when you're ready, you can let that go, finding your down dog or knees into chest. And then I'm going to invite you to move into the end of your practice, either lying on your back or by coming up to sit in a way that feels comfortable to you to find some meditation. So if you're feeling like you're ready to rest and come onto your back and just relax, you can take that. If you feel like you'd like to just have a little more awareness and a weakness in your body, then you can draw yourself back up to sit. If you're coming up to sit, just support yourself so that you can be really comfortable. I can't sit with my legs crossed for longer than 4 minutes, I'd say, without pain in the hips. So I like to sit with my knees forward and a block underneath me, but figure out what works for you. And then wherever you are, I just invite you to close your eyes and bring your awareness again to where do you make contact with the earth. What parts of you touch onto the earth? And how does the earth support you? You might turn your palms to face upwards again, just in a gesture of both surrender and receiving. Remembering the widening on the back of your body, all those who came before you, all that is behind you. And just go through those palms today. What do you let go of? And what do you receive back in? We're going to move our practice together today towards a close. So if you know you want to stay lying down and take a couple more moments for yourself, please do. Or if you're ready to come up to sit to join us, you can. So it's known that when we take time to heal, and particularly when we take time to retrain our nervous system, that we are more likely to not enact our trauma onto others, more likely to allow the lessons that we need to learn to settle into an embodiment level. So I invite you now to press your palms together in front of your heart and just to thank your body for showing up today. For taking this moment, whatever this day means to you, this holiday, this day of mourning, so loaded in so many ways. Just thanking your body for showing up to do the work, to repattern your nervous system, to heal yourself. And I invite you to just find that sense of spaciousness on the back of your body. Find that sense of spaciousness in your breath. Or that whatever you find yourself in today, whether it's with family and feeling either joy or discomfort around that, or if you find yourself in a place of mourning, in a place of grief, in a place of deep reflection, where do you find your spaciousness? I'm going to invite us all to inhale together and exhale to forward bend and end our practice. Thanks everybody for being here. If you didn't get the link for donations, I'll go ahead and post it in the chat one more time. I teach this class every Tuesday and Thursday. It doesn't always have such a wonderful focus and such a special guest, but feel free to come back. It's the same Zoom link and it's by donation. And I always try to incorporate some kind of theme of relating the body to the social justice world. So I'd be happy to have you back if that's what you're looking for in your practice. Thank you again, Devin, for bringing so much energy and love and inviting our ancestors in. It sure is. It is 12:30. It's usually 55 minutes. I went a little over today. I got a little indulgent, but I try to get everybody done in 55 minutes. So if you're working and you only have an hour for a break, that you can take some time to, take care of your biology. Also, if you can't come for the whole class, it's fine to drop in and drop out. And I also posted on YouTube Live because I know some folks don't want to be seen or they want to remain anonymous, and that's totally fine. As well as after it gets posted on YouTube Live, it stays up for a week. So if you're not able to come right at this time and you want to go ahead and watch the class later and participate that way, you can. So yeah, again, if you haven't already seen it, go ahead and drop a donation, and if you want to make it directly towards Seeding Sovereignty, you can. And I will add up our donations from today, and I'll put a post on the Instagram about how much we raised. So thanks everybody for being here.